and welcome to ITLS Academy Empower the Youth. So today in this lecture we will going to study about the scope of food microbiology, that is microorganism and food. So in this lecture we will see what are the scope of microbiology and how microorganisms are useful for humans, how microorganisms are harmful for humans, what is the relationship between or a microorganism and food, and we will see the basic definition of microbiology, right? So since its name suggests microbiology, so if we say yes, this microbiology is a science that deals with the study of tiny creature. Whenever I am saying tiny creature means create organisms that are so small, or you can say that are very small, that you cannot see with your naked eyes, right? So this is what microbiology is. But here we are talking about food microbiology. So food microbiology is again a very broad one, in which we study the microorganism that are both which have both beneficial as well as harmful effect on the quality as well as the safety of any raw or processed food, right? So let's quickly see the introduction part of food microbiology. So the introduction of food microbiology says the field of food microbiology is a very broad one, encompassing the study of microorganisms which have both beneficial and deterioration effect on the quality and safety of raw and processed foods. It is an important to understand the relationship between the various microorganisms making up the microflora of a food. In fact, food microbiologists are concerned with a practical implications of microflora of the food and the food microorganism that cause spoilage of food and diseases in humans. Microorganism in food includes bacteria, mold, yeast, algae, viruses, parasitic worm, and protozoa. These organisms differ in size and shape and in their biochemical and cultural characteristics. So, as we have already discussed, this food microbiology is a broad study of the microorganisms. So those microorganisms that are very much useful as well as harmful in effect on the quality and safety of food. So, this food microbiology, again, if I tell you the basic definition, so it is the study of microorganism that create, or you can say the contaminate the food. So, what they are doing, they are at the somewhat deteriorating the quality of the food, right? Whether the food is cooked, whether the food is processed, and whether the food is raw, right? So what they are exactly doing, they are deteriorating the quality of food. But sometimes microorganism plays a very vital role also, whenever it is concerned with the manufacturing of any food. Just to say yogurt, right? Just to say curd, in the manufacturing of a dough, or you can say in a manufacturing of many other food, right? Where the microorganisms plays an important role, as studied in our very basic standards, that these microorganisms have a very beneficial effect on food, and you can say on humans as well, right? So here the microorganisms are related to both beneficial effect as well as harmful effect. So microorganism in food includes bacteria, mold, yeast, algae, viruses, parasitic worms, and protozoa. So these organisms may differ in size, shape, and their biochemical and cultural activities. Why I am saying this biochemical and cultural characteristics means every microorganism, whether it's a bacteria or whether it's yeast or whether it's viruses, algae, protozoa, they all have different structural characteristics. Means their shapes are different. Some are eukaryotic, some are prokaryotics, right? As well as if I talk about their shapes as well, so their shapes may vary, right? Some are very minute. If I say bacteria, right? So bacteria, if you see, there are thousands and thousands of bacteria that are in our surroundings, but you cannot see bacteria, isn't it? Why you cannot see bacteria? Because they are so small that you cannot see with your naked eyes, so you need a microscope to visualize that bacteria, isn't it? But if I talk about the another microorganism, that is algae, so you can easily see algae, right? But still algae is considered under a list of a microorganism. But here it is a differentiate, means you can see algae. But if I see that green part, what is there exactly under that green colored structure? That is known as the actual structure of microorganism that you cannot see. You can only see the green color, right? So that makes them different from each other, as well as their biochemical chemicals as well as cultural characteristics may also differ. So now moving to the next, that is the scope of food microbiology. Nowadays people are so much aware, so much conscious about their health. So this food microbiology is becoming a very advanced a course that people are, that students are liking it. Why? Because it is concerned with food, and we all know that food is the basic necessity of any human or any living creature on this earth. Because without food a life cannot be, no one can can sustain in this on this earth, because if there is no food, right? So food has a very food is a basic need. So the science that deals with the food, as well as a science that is dealing with the study of food as well as microorganism, so that came a becoming a very vast branch. And here a scope of food microbiology is very much, because this microbiology, it is the science which includes the study of occurrence and significance of bacteria, fungi, protozoa and algae, which are beginning and ending of intricate food chain upon which all life depends, right? So microbiology, as we have already discussed, it includes the occurrence and the significance of bacteria, that is fungi, protozoa, algae. Because it is a starting or ending of any food chain, and on this the life depends. So most of the food chain begin wherever photosynthetic organism can trap light energy and use it to synthesize a large molecules from carbon dioxide, water and mineral salts, forming a protein, fat, carbohydrates, which all other living creature use for food. So for food chain, it begins wherever photosynthetic organism. So what are photosynthetic organism? So photosynthetic organisms are those organisms that use sunlight, or you can say that uses light to manufacture their own food, because they have that you can say they have that pigment that is known as chlorophyll in them. So with the use of this chlorophyll, mineral salt, light, basically sunlight, water, so what they are doing, they are synthesizing their own food. And apart from this, they are forming proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, which all other living creature uses for food, right? Now moving to the next, that is microorganism and food. Yes. Now comes the microorganism and food. So the food that we eat are really, if ever, sterile. They carry microbial association whose composition depend upon which organisms gain access and how they grow, survive, and interact with the food over time. The microorganisms present will originate from natural microflora of raw materials and those organisms introduced in the course of harvesting, slaughters, processing, storage, and distribution. In some instances, through microorganisms manifest their present in one of the several ways. They can cause spoilage, how they deteriorate any food. So what they do, they can cause spoilage, means of course we know that spoilage means they deteriorate the quality of the food by making it unacceptable for human consumption. They can cause foodborne illness. They can transform a food properties in a beneficial way, means food fermentation. So how they manifest their presence by causing a spoilage, by causing a foodborne illness, means any diseases that can be caused after the food is deteriorate. And they can transform food's properties into a beneficial way, as well as when they are like food fermentation, means the manufacturing of curd, manufacturing of yogurt, right? So moving to the food spoilage. Now what is food spoilage? So if you go through this image, if you see this image here, there is some food that are not acceptable for consumption, means if you see this apple, right? So it is totally deteriorated. If you see these lettuce, it is unacceptable. This bread has a like fungus on its surface. So this food is spoiled food. How this food is spoiled? Because it is not they are not you can say acceptable for human consumptions. They cannot have it. So, and these food spoilage we are dealing since years, right? In our houses also. That means we see whenever we kept any food outside of the refrigerator, though the earlier, if we during in some, especially in summers, so whenever you get up in the morning, you see the food is deteriorated, right? Some foul or odor is coming. The food is stinking. Food has some fungus on their surface. So this is what food spoilage is, means making a food not acceptable for human consumption. So if food items are kept for a long time or a long period of time and not stored properly, they get spoiled. Such food items are bad for health. Of course you cannot have the spoiled food, because they are bad for health. When food items kept for a long time get spoiled, as germs start growing on it. Once the food is spoiled, it cannot be eaten and has to be thrown away, right? Whenever the food is not properly stored, means here we have used a one term, stored properly. So there is nothing key. You have to keep the food in the refrigerator. You must keep the food in refrigerator whenever there is a requirement of keeping that food in a refrigerator, right? If we say there are certain food items that you have to keep it properly, means in a airtight container. You have to place some, means airtight container should be there to prevent any microbial contamination. Means basically you have to avoid food to come into a contact of any microorganisms, right? So once the food is spoiled, so it is unacceptable for human consumption and you have to throw that food away. So इसलिए I'm saying कि you have to store your food in a proper way, so that there should no spoilage. Spoilage, let's see the definition. Spoilage is a process in which food items deteriorate to the point in which it is not eatable for to humans, that we have already discussed. What are the causes of food spoilage? So the first is the food and water may be infected by germs, means by microorganisms. So micro organism, and we all know that this microorganism can easily survive in an environment where there is an excess of water. Then comes flies carries germs. When they sit on our food, they pass on these germs to our food. There are various factors which are responsible for food spoilage, such as bacteria, mold, yeast, moisture, light, temperature, and chemical reaction. So these are the certain factors that can deteriorate, or you can say that spoil the food. First is bacteria, second is mold, yeast, moisture. Moisture plays an important role in deteriorating or spoiling any food item, as well as light. If proper temperature is not given, again the food can spoil. Any chemical reaction that occur in the food, that also cause deterioration of food. Now comes the major cause of food spoilage. So the first is there are four causes. First is physical, chemical, microorganism, and others. Like if we talk about the temperature, physical, the physical is divided into four, that is temperature, relative humidity, light, and mechanical damage. So temperature again plays an important role, because there is certain optimum temperature on which you have to store food. There is certain temperature on which food should be stored, so to avoid deterioration, as well as this cases with a relative humidity, light, mechanical damage, right? Then comes the chemical cause, that is enzymatic reaction, non-enzymatic reaction, rancidity, chemical interaction. So these four is on the causes are also there, where enzymes reactions take place, so that can also deteriorate the food. Non-enzymatic reactions can also deteriorate. Rancidity can also deteriorate the quality of food. And chemical interaction, if there is any chemical interaction in the food is going on, then it is up. Here comes what is rancidity. I am writing it here, if you can. Rancidity is a process of the process of complete or incomplete auto-oxidation is known as rancidity, or you can say auto-oxidation or hydrolysis, right? So this is what rancidity is. So again, microorganism, that is bacteria, yeast, and mold. As we have already discussed, this bacteria, yeast, and mold plays an important role in deteriorating any quality of food. Then comes insect, rodent, and animals and birds. Now moving to the sign of food spoilage. So sign of food spoilage, we will going to understand this with the help of one activity, that is experiment to study the growth of fungus. So what are the sign of food spoilage? Sign of food spoilage include an appearance different from the fresh food, such as change in color, change in texture, and unpleasant odor or taste. So appearance plays an important sign of any food spoilage, because by looking at the food you can say yes, this food is unacceptable for consumption, right? If you see this bread and if you see this bread is the fresh one, this bread is the spoiled one, so you cannot have this bread. Why? Because you are seeing there is a fungus growth, right? So you cannot have this bread. So appearance plays an important role. If you smell this bread, this is fresh, there is no such odor is coming. If you smell this bread, oh, odor is coming, right? So by appearance, by the first appearance, you can visualize yes, this food is not unacceptable for human consumption. Then comes the activity. So the first is the to study the growth of fungus. We will take a piece of bread, right? After taking a piece of bread, we take a piece of bread, then make it moist and keep it in a warm. You take one piece of bread here by keeping it fresh, and on the other bread you just make it a little moist, and then you have to keep it in a warm corner of the room for 3 to 4 days. You observe after for 3 to 4 days what is there. There is a presence of a greenish patch growing on the bread, and that is known as fungus, right? Now moving to the spoilage sign, odor, that we have already discussed. Breakdown of protein. So odor comes whenever there is a breakdown of proteins, that is putrefaction, right? So that smell is very rotten smells, right? Then slimeness, due to primarily to the surface accumulation of microbial cell, also to be a manifestation of tissues degradation. Then discoloration, whenever the color changes, right? Because of the blue green mold, and mold on the bread. If sometimes you see there is the color of banana changes, right? It turns from yellow to brown. Okay, this is known as browning. So these are also a sign of food spoilage. So hope you have understood the spoilage part. Now how to prevent food from spoiling. So this is known as food preservation. So food preservation, it is a process by which the food is stored by a special method. Means just to avoid just to prevent the food from spoilation. Then it is known as preservation. So preservation of a food, you can see what is food preservation. So food preservation, it consists of the application of science based knowledge through which a variety of available technologies and procedure to prevent the deterioration and spoilage of food product. So as we all know that food is very valuable, right? Preserving food can helps to avoid wasting of food, right? Food preservation involves preventing the food from the being spoiled. So we have discussed this definition. Preservation of food is a process by which food is stored by a special method. Cooked or uncooked food can be preserved in a different ways to use it later. So how you have to preserve the cooked food, how to preserve uncooked food. So they have different method to to preserve the food items. Now moving to the next, that is method of food preservation. So if we talk about the food preservation techniques, then it is divided into two parts, that is physical method and chemical method. If we see the physical method, then it's drying, chilling, freezing, canning, smoking, pasteurization. If we talk about a chemical method, then it is salting, pickling, sugaring. So these food preservation techniques are divided into basically two methods. First is physical method and second is chemical method. Now we will see in detail what are physical method and what are chemical method. So the first is refrigeration. A low temperature of the fridge does not allow germs. Wherever I am saying germs means microorganisms. Okay? Microorganisms. So a low temperature of the fridge does not allow allow germs to grow. Thus the food is preserved. Example: vegetable, eggs, and fruits. So refrigerations plays an important role in preserving any food, because whenever we buy anything, any vegetable or any left out food, or eggs, even the fruits, we keep it in a refrigerator and it is properly preserved for 2 or 3 4 days, right? So because these low temperature of the fridge, they does not allow the grow of any microorganisms, right? Then comes the drying. If you remove water from any food, because already we have discussed this, water plays an important role, क्योंकि wherever there is a water, there is a abundant amount of microorganisms are there. So if we remove water by heating or evaporating, so there are here, then there we preserve food, for example grains and pulses. Now comes the pickling. Pickling addition of salt or spices. Example: mango, lemon, vegetables. Right. So whenever you are using this lemon, mango, or this vegetables. Sorry. Whenever you are adding any salt and spices, why we add salt and spices? We all know that the salt and spices gives the taste to the food, but apart from giving taste, they also act as a preservative, right? By what they are doing, by preventing they prevent the growth of microorganisms. Then comes the deep freezing. Keeping food, vegetable, meats and fish in the freezer for a longer period of time, means here what we are doing, so we are keeping the food as well as vegetables, meat, fish in the freezer for a longer period of time. Sometimes we put meat in the refrigerator. Why we are doing this? Because deep freezing avoid or does not allow microorganism to grow. So here there you can preserve your food for a longer period of time. Then comes the canning. Addition of sugar to make jam, jellies and sauces, etc. Means if you add sugar again, they are acting as a preservative, and by this you are avoiding the contamination of any microorganism and preserving food. Basically jam, jellies and sauces, jam, jelly and sauces you add sugar. Now coming to the airtight pouches. Keeping prepared food items in nitrogen or gas filled polypacks pouches, so they can also avoid the contamination of a microorganism and preserving your food. For example, chips, french fries, noodles, etc. Now we will going to understand this with the one activity. To understand the principle of food preservation, take two apples and then you have to keep them and you have to take two apples and fridge. Take two apples, keep one apple in a refrigerator, and you have to keep one apple outside of the refrigerator. Let's say this apple is, we are keeping this apple outside and this in fridge, right? So if we record the observation of this apple after 2 or 3 days, their skin get deteriorated, right? And if we record the skin of this apple, then these apples looks fresh. So because fridge, what fridge are doing, fridge are this fridge are not allowing they are not allowing the growth of any such microorganism. So what are the observation? The the apple inside the fridge is fresh, while the apples that is kept outside will start decaying, because the microorganism are attacking its surface and making it unacceptable for use, and this apple becomes spoiled, and these apple are still fresh after 2 or 3 days. So fridge plays an important role in preserving any food. Now quickly see the advantages and disadvantages of food. So if we talk about the advantages of food preservation, then germs do not grow easily in preserved food and make it safe to eat. Preservation enable us to enjoy seasonal fruits like strawberries, mangoes, even during the off seasons. So nowadays what preservation is doing, so preservation is allows they do not allow germs to grow very quickly easily. So what they are doing, they are preserving the food of for the future use. Means you can enjoy the seasonal strawberries, mangoes during the off season. Right, if we talk about the disadvantage of food preservation, then excess salt and sugar are used in the preservation of food, which is not good for health. Right, some form method of food preservation may lead to the loss of nutrition. So there are certain disadvantages whenever you are adding salt or whenever you are adding any sugar. So what they are doing, they are deteriorating the quality of the food, in the sense they are lead to the loss of nutrients, right? So and this excess salt and sugar are also not useful for humans. Right, this is excess salt and sugar that are used as a preservatives. They are also not good for the health. So this is about the disadvantages of the preservation. So hope you have understood the lecture. If any doubt in any of the slide, please let me know in the comment section below. You can also visit our website, that is www.itlsacademy.com. Please students, don't forget to like, share and subscribe our channel. And thank you for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you.